Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to today's Good Giving Challenge social media webinar. This webinar is being recorded and we will upload it to our YouTube channel later this week. And we'll save some time at the end for Q&A, so please submit your questions using the Q&A feature. I'm Lauren Parsons, Bluegrass Community Foundation's Director of Strategic Initiatives and Communications, and I have the pleasure of overseeing the Good Giving Challenge. The challenge has been helping nonprofits raise funds and connect with new donors since 2011. I've been on BGCF's team for 3 years, but was a challenge donor long before that. David Caldwell, today's presenter, and I worked together at a PR firm before businesses, nonprofits, and other organizations could even create their own social media pages. But since then, David has made social media marketing and advertising campaigns his area of expertise. David helps BGCF with our paid social media and digital ad campaigns for the Good Giving Challenge, and we've been really pleased with those results. Last year, David presented a webinar on social media tactics, which I found to be helpful, and we heard from many of you that you thought so too. So we brought David back to cover some social media best practices and tactics for growing your audience. David, I'll go ahead and turn off my camera and pass the baton over to you.
Thank you, Lauren. I appreciate that. So I'll go ahead and share this screen. And I'm going to probably hide my video so I can hop off of, won't be distracting on screen maybe. If I can do that. It doesn't look like I'm able to do that. That's okay. So hopefully you guys can see my opening screen. So thank you, Lauren, for having me here today. And thanks everyone for tuning in. As Lauren mentioned, I have had the honor of working with Bluegrass Community Foundation for the last 3 years on helping you guys promote the Good Giving Challenge to social media audiences and just help increase support and fundraising for that effort. It's a great event. And so I'm thrilled to talk to you guys about that today. And it's really great timing since you have 20 something days left. The Good Giving Challenge starts. I thought it'd be a great time for us to get together and talk through some best practices and tips and things like that related to social media and growing your audience. Even though Lauren said I am an expert in this, I am no means an algorithm expert or a Facebook expert. But honestly, just over the years, working with so many nonprofits and member associations and various companies, I've just learned some real life, real world experiences that I wanted to bring to you today. So as most of you know, or most of you probably will be doing organic communication via social media for your campaigns for leading up to Good Giving Challenge. There will be some of you who do paid campaigns as well. But so most of our time today will be spent on how to grow your social media audiences. And most of that leans in toward organically, but there are some sections of the presentation that address some paid tactics as well, specifically for Facebook. Ideally, when you are trying to grow your social media audiences and have a bigger online presence, the whole point, as you know, is just to have more eyeballs on your content. And so we're just going to be dealing with some tips and tricks on that. You know your content better than anyone else. You know whether you have lots of great graphics and photos or stories or video content. So as we go through this presentation today, just think about your own library of resources, your own library of content, and what is going to work best for you and what you have available to you for the Good Giving Challenge and moving past that. Just plan accordingly. Think about the content that you have and how you want to align it to the different platforms that you already have in existence. So you almost could I don't have tons and tons of slides today, so you almost could sit back and view this as a podcast in a way, because I'm just going to be hitting several points and stick pretty closely to my notes because I want to make sure I get you guys all of this important information. But as we all know, in today's competitive digital environment, promoting your organization on social media is a non-negotiable. It has to be done to remain relevant with the audiences that you're trying to reach and for the success of your nonprofit. Whether it's day-to-day communications or fundraising, there's no getting around the fact that what you do on social media impacts your bottom line of your organization and some fundamental operational goals that you have. However, many organizations and even us who work in the agency side we get overwhelmed with how best to achieve results on social media, not only because the algorithms and the changes and the new platforms being introduced constantly, but just all the variations that just keep coming our way. It sometimes can be in social media overload. But in essence, we believe that effective social media communications really starts with building the right kind of audience and growing that audience to meet your needs. So make sure that you start with planning, as always, in any marketing campaign you do or traditional advertising campaign you do. It all should start with audience and who you're trying to reach. Otherwise, you will fall into a trap of just aimlessly publishing content and just hoping that it hits a target out there. So you just always want to know who you want to reach, and you can be successful in planning how you want to reach them. And we're going to start with the basics of defining your target audience. Why is it so important to define an ideal target audience? Well, first of all, it allows you to focus your efforts and your messaging and your communications on a defined target group. It allows you to promote to them more effectively because you're reaching out to a specific group of people, a specific ideal target again and again. And you can develop messaging that really resonates with them, and it makes it easier to connect with them over time as you earn their loyalty and support. So you want to start really by even looking at who already is following you and following your social channels. Start by taking a closer look at who follows you. And the goal here is to really identify who already is engaging with your social media channels so you can gain a better understanding of them. You want to monitor and just check in on who's following your social media, who's interacting with your posts on a regular basis, who's liking and sharing and commenting on your content, and then start to narrow down some common characteristics, such as their age and their location. Are they in certain parts of your community or certain zip codes of the city? Their interest and so on. And then also, don't forget that you can start to reach out and send direct invites to people who are engaging with your social media channels. Lots of times, I think there's some low hanging fruit that if people like our comments or like our content or share our content and even comment, they're seeing it from other sources and from other feeds, and they may not be followers of yours already. So you could be missing an opportunity to directly ask them to follow your content instead of assuming that they are. They may not be a follower yet. But, and then also, in addition to looking at your current audiences, think about what kind of content they're looking for from you. As an organization, as a nonprofit, you have a mission that probably resonates with them. So just be thinking about the kind of information that they're looking for from you. Are they event driven? Or they want to know when they can engage with you? Or are they looking for specific opportunities to donate money and to help with a cause? So just try to think about the kinds of content that they are engaging with you for, and then serve that up on a regular basis. Another thing that I think it's important to look at is who in the social media world is using what. And as I referenced earlier, that changes a lot. But the first step toward building and increasing your social media audience is simply figuring out who you want to target and what that audience consists of for your organization. Is your organization currently attracting more people through Twitter or Facebook or Instagram? Really get a sense of where those people are coming, how they align with your target demographics and age demographics. And quite honestly, spend your time and energy on the places where your natural audience is already engaged. You can let go of the pressure of having to be on all 3 or 4 platforms. Just pick and choose which is the most successful for you and really harness that and grow that audience. I give you permission to do that. The big 3, of course, that we're going to talk about today is Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I thought it might be nice to start with some demographics of where we are in the current space. four, the big three, as I like to call it. About 2.7 billion active users are on Facebook right now. And the largest age group, which I think is a little surprising, is 25 to 34. Statistics would say that that audience is aging older fast, and it certainly is. But we still have a large share of younger people on Facebook. It is 44% female and 56% male, and they're spending about an average of 38 minutes on there per day. So just think about, as we move through these demographics and stats for each of the big three, think about who's aligning with who you think your audience is or who you know your supporters and your funders are. This is a slide with lots of information. Don't feel like you have to digest all of that because I'm going to hit the highlights. Facebook is still the most used and engaged social platform. As I referenced earlier, there is an influx and increasing amount of boomers and older people that have moved to Facebook, and that's why it's such a great place to run ads. They have a little more spending power, and so it's a great place to obviously promote your association, your nonprofit. And the notion that the younger crowd is totally moving away from Facebook isn't true. There's still a lot of younger people on there. However, it's certainly not the youngest platform anymore. Just some highlights and takeaways for Instagram for your knowledge. There's about 1 billion users on Instagram, and the largest age group being 25 to 34. And again, we have 57% female, which I think I totally understand that, see that, and then 43% male, and they're spending about 29 minutes a day. Again, just some takeaways on that is that it is the second largest network after Facebook. But the great thing about Instagram is there's just lots of, because they're owned both by Facebook or Meta now, if you want to call it that, there's some cross promotional opportunities that can happen pretty naturally between the platforms, particularly in an advertising environment. Kind of takes the legwork off of having to promote to both channels in a paid environment. And then secondly, with Instagram, with the introduction of Reels some time ago, maybe a year and a half ago, maybe not that long, there's just a fierce competition for younger users and video content. So they're trying to really grow that area and capture that audience. And then finally, it's just some overview Twitter demographics. The number of daily active users, about 187 million. So smaller. The largest age group you see ticks up a little bit. The usage goes more to male versus female. These are just, and of course, look at the minutes per session. So people aren't on there as long because it's just a really quick hit kind of social platform. So just a couple of trends to keep in mind as you think about the use of Twitter in your nonprofit is it remains fairly consistent year to year, but it's really as a place to gather quick news or conduct some really exciting customer service insights and polling, things like that. But advertising still remains very tricky on Twitter. I mean, you can do sponsored posts and things like that, but it's just not as ad friendly as Facebook is currently. So kind of just to continue on this line of thought about these three different social media platforms and how you can grow your audiences within each. I just want to move into some tips for growing your audiences on those channels. Just give me just a second. I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. So as we all know, there's always talk in the news about the ever-changing things going on with Facebook, the algorithms, as a corporation, as an entity, everything they're going through. And all that is true. I mean, there's a lot of chaos going on, but the organic reach on Facebook remains challenging at times, but you also can still get new followers on Facebook and other socials by doing a few things consistently. In the absence of paid advertising, you can still grow organically. And a lot of that is about just posting the right kind of content. And so we're going to spend some time talking about what I feel, what I've witnessed and seen and helped other associations assist with is just kind of developing the right kinds of content that resonates and helps them grow their users and grow their followers. So, as we all know, social media feeds are packed with content from other organizations, as well as your friends and your family and your aunts and your uncles, and just every other connection. So, if you want to grow your audience, you really need to think about content that people will share and will comment and engage with. Again, if remember the the sole marketing purpose for social media channels is really to increase engagement and conversations. Whereas maybe compared to digital marketing and digital display advertising, the goal might be to drive website traffic. So just think about that, that social is all about the engagement angle. So if you want to grow your social content and grow your audience, you really need to think about shareable content. And so the question is, what kind of content do you need to put up in order to get people to share? Well, a reliable way to do it is just to always ask questions, ask people, tell us what you think, tell us what you want to hear from us. And really just it's creating that two-way conversation, and you're asking people to engage so that it's not just always a one-way conversation. It seems basic, and you shouldn't use this for every piece of content that you put up, but asking questions is still a very powerful strategy for your social media content. I always recommend to my association clients and nonprofit clients that they pull back the curtain a little bit and give us a glimpse into their organization and the reality on a daily basis. Uh, Customers and followers and supporters love to know, be in the know and kind of behind the scenes on what's going on. So there's many ways to do this. You can showcase some of your event plans and preparations for special events. You can introduce your employees over kind of a series of time, like employee highlights or profiles. You can have special posts about the people that you're helping through your organization, and just really the life change that you're impacting through your nonprofit. Just really anything to help your supporters feel more of a part of your mission and impact, and that they are just growing with you and learning with you and engaging with you on a daily, weekly basis, and not just at fundraising time. Another important thing that I think a lot of my clients overlook, and I understand, but it's because they have the challenges to create these materials in house. But brand consistency online on social media is very important. Um, if people can see consistent content from you that has your logo and your brand colors and a photo style and an image style and just a graphic treatment, they will begin to recognize your content in those feeds, that they see so many choices, and they'll stop and they'll pause and they'll engage with you. So just think about, creating a series or a set of posts that look alike, feel alike, have the same tone and style, that are branded, and it kind of stops that kind of visual noise in some channels and allows them to focus on your brand. I know it's a very simple thing to think about, but it is true. People really do respond to consistency and just a simple presentation of your assets. Another thing that I think you hear a lot about in your world, in your nonprofit world, is telling stories. There's nothing better than storytelling. It just allows you to get personal with your audience. It's a great way to connect with your followers on a different level. You can use stories of profiled clients, like I mentioned before, that you serve and life change. You can talk about your founder or founders of your organization and how your nonprofit came into being. People love feeling like a part of something that's bigger than them. Another important tool would be using the videos. As you hear all the time, social media loves videos, and it's true. The algorithms that are created for videos are just stronger and growing even more. That's why Facebook has their watch section now on their platform, and it's why Instagram has taken off, and stories and reels. So just think about using videos. And one thing that don't overlook, and I'm sure a lot of you are doing it because I actually see it out there in the space, is think about your events and your fundraising events or your special community gatherings, anything that you do that's public facing. Use that extra dimension and go Facebook Live. You do the Facebook Live events and take these social media followers inside your events if they can't attend in person. It allows them to be there and get excited. And live stream events that recorded and are parked on your social channels and your feeds are great for SEO. And it's another way to really just pull your audience in and grow your audience. Another overlooked tool that we use a lot for our nonprofit clients is the use of infographics. When I'm talking about infographics, historically, those are long form graphics that can be very detailed. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about using succinct graphics, sort of like the one I'm showing here, that really just shows, your impact, how many clients you served, how many meals you served, how many clothing you deliver, articles deliver, whatever your mission, whatever your nonprofit is, capture in simple infographics how people's support of you and the money they give you is going to change lives. And infographics work really well because they're small, they're succinct, they can be used extremely well on social media channels, and it's a way to kind of stop people in their tracks and let them see the good that you're doing and the good they're doing through the support. So program stats, like I said, number of people served, those kinds of things. It's great content to share. Turning the page a little bit to more paid advertising versus just organic uh, strategies, we're going to spend a little time on Facebook and investing in Facebook advertising. Facebook collects, whether we like it or not, Facebook collects so much data about all of us, including our education level, our interests, our hobbies, you name it. They probably got it stashed away in a secret file. But as an advertiser, you can use this information to really target and build a message to reach your specific audience. So when we talk about advertising on Facebook, I'm going to kind of start at the basic level, not knowing exactly. I'm sure some of you are a lot more experienced than me, and some of you are just getting started and never done a paid advertising campaign before on Facebook. But I just wanted to start kind of with a basic approach. The biggest benefit of Facebook advertising is the ad targeting function that allows you to pinpoint specific people who are most likely interested in interacting and engaging with you. Unlike pay per clicks advertising campaign in the past, you're not paying every time somebody clicks on your ad. Modern Facebook advertising allows you to get a lot more granular and really target who you're trying to reach and really serve your content and your ads to relevant users based on their interest. So I'm just going to touch on three today. So for starters, Facebook uses they have a create audiences. So when you say, okay, I'm in my Facebook channel, I'm on the back end, I want to create a new ad, it's going to give you several choices. And I'm just going to kind of go through those. So basically, one choice is you can create an audience, and that's pretty basic. Anybody can do that, and that's where the starting point is usually. So you can define your audience based on their location, down to the zip code, their age, their interest, education level, um, gender, and things like that. So it's very basic, but you can create a very detailed audience as a starting point. Another option for you would be create a custom audience. It starts to get a little more complicated. Sometimes if you hear people talk about custom audiences, they also call it remarketing ads or remarketing audiences. And it can be really good, a really important way for you to reach people. And the reason why is because these type of audiences and ads target members of the social media stratosphere and your audiences who you've interacted with in the past. They've either maybe current or former donors. It's someone who maybe has engaged with your website or your Facebook page before, and they've left a cookie there that can be utilized to create a custom audience. So it's people who have engaged with you before. And then finally, the third one is you can also create what's called lookalike audiences. We do this a lot for our clients, and I do it actually for the Good Giving Challenge with Lauren. Lauren sends me a database of donors that they've received throughout the year, and I'm not targeting those specific donors, but I am targeting a lookalike audience based on their social media behavior and their interest areas and everything like that. So that's why it's called a lookalike audience. You can do two different things relating to that. You can target. So in this sense, you would import a database, and you can create lookalike audiences that look like those people based on their email addresses and which is connected to their user profiles. Or you can also create lookalike audience. Say, for instance, if Lauren wanted to create a lookalike audience based on another nonprofit or based on another organization, we can do a lookalike audience based on who's following that page. So there's lots of variables there. It gets really deep. We'd have not enough time to talk about the in-depthness of how you can create lookalike audiences and custom audiences Facebook, but I figured it would be a good start just to start that conversation. But with but besides creating your audience, let's talk about ways you can optimize your content specifically for Facebook to make it more successful, to make it better for that specific platform. So, you really don't need to treat Facebook as like this dumping ground for content that you normally would use for other platforms. And when I say that, I mean just be specific. Like think about the kind of captions you create in the post. Don't include hashtags in Facebook posts because it doesn't work that way. Save that for Instagram. Uh, so if you have a page of social media content that you're going to a Word document, you're going to populate 3 platforms. It kind of a waste of time because you have to cut the copy anyway because they each have different character counts. Some of them rely on hashtags, some don't. So just craft unique captions for Facebook. That's my point of that is don't feel like one size fits it all. Another thing to avoid in Facebook posts specifically is uh, including only external links. Facebook doesn't want you necessarily to hop off their platform and go to a website or hop off and go to another page. They want you to stay on there as long as possible. So avoid the use of links in your post copy. You can do it, but just don't put all your resources there or your efforts there because Facebook will eventually penalize you for the algorithm will penalize you for leading people away from the platform. So just be aware of that. So avoid posting only external links. Focus on formats that keep people engaged, like videos and infographics and things that we've talked about. But do include a specific call to action in your post. Like you might, like I talked about, ask them a question, uh, ask them to comment below the post about what they think about a certain situation or a certain thing you're doing. And then also make sure you include specific call to action buttons on your content, whether it's paid or organic. Um, but especially in paid, like learn more, donate now, shop. Shop doesn't really apply to this industry, but you know what I'm saying. Make sure you include specific CTA buttons that drive, and that's where you can include a URL that would be built into the ad, and it's not this external link in the post copy. Another thing to think about with Facebook is just scheduling content consistently. It's no surprise that a lot of the pages that have the most engagement is with accounts that post on a regular basis, even a daily basis. And I don't think that you necessarily need to post daily. Um, Most often for our clients and campaigns that we work on, whether they're paid strategies, but specifically organic strategies, like if it's a campaign, fundraiser, just trying to promote awareness, we recommend 2 to 3 posts per week. That's a good rhythm. In fact, it's funny, I was just talking to a nonprofit client earlier today that we're going to start a new awareness campaign, kind of a celebration campaign, right after Good Giving stops. And we're going to do a 6-week paid promotion. And we're planning about 18 to 20 pieces of content for 6 weeks after Good Giving. So 2 to 3 posts a week for 6 weeks. And those are going to be, it's interesting, those are going to be posts that have infographics about the kind of services they've done all year. And it's a compilation of actually, it's a compilation of their 10-year efforts. And so part of their strategy is going to be infographics about the services and things they've delivered for their clients. There's going to be 2 to 3 pieces of video content that'll be on social. There's going to be a little bit of a longer 60-second video. So it's just a variety of content. But in the total 6-week campaign, again, we're looking at about 18 to 20 pieces of content, which breaks down to about 2 to 3 per week. So that should work. That's a good rule to follow. But anyway, just be consistent in your post and don't disappear for long periods of time so people are surprised to see you up there again. You want to have them coming back on a regular basis. So speaking of that, let's look at some times. I get this question a lot: is when is the best time of day to post on Facebook? And so Sprout Social it's a really strong social media game. First of all, they're a great social media posting tool. If you don't know about Sprout Social, I'd advise you to research it, and you could probably use it to take a lot of your posting labor off your backs. But for the Facebook specifically, you can see according to this chart that Sprout would recommend the highest engagement happens around, let's see, Friday to midweek, usually around 1 p.m. So this is a great way to kind of look and see when most of the people that you're trying to reach are on. So this is a resource that'll be available in this recorded presentation, or you can find it easily through Sprout Social online. Also want to spend a little time for Facebook thinking about and talking about the use of groups and third-party engagement. Supplementing your page with activity from groups is a great way to grow your followers and grow your audience. So if you have any groups that have formed around your cause or mission or organization, look for those groups and communicate directly with them. Target them through advertising. Look for affinity groups that maybe align with your nonprofit's mission and goals, but isn't a part of your organization. But again, it's a great way just to create a large audience, create a larger conversation on a regular basis. And of course, don't forget to reach low-hanging fruit. As I mentioned earlier, think about your employees or your agency partners, and just, again, target those people and just directly ask them to follow and share your content. Being transparent and honest about you needing their organic following, there's nothing wrong with that. It's sincere, and it really does make an impact over time. We just launched a campaign or a new social media page and a campaign on October 20th for local nonprofits just starting. And so, guess what? We're 12 days into it, and we're approaching 500 Facebook followers in 12 days. And it's simply because, in addition to a little of a paid strategy through boosting, we've just really had the client ask their affiliates, their partners, their employees, their agency partners to just engage and follow. And so we've been really happy with that. So don't be humble. Ask for people to follow your nonprofit. We're going to change gears a little bit and talk about the other platform of the big three and focus our efforts on Instagram. Competition for customers right now is fierce on Instagram. It's such a visual medium. It's such a photo-rich medium. But with the right strategies, you can build an engaged audience with advocates and future supporters. Really through the creativity and the use of hashtags. I get a lot of questions and conversations around the use of hashtags in Instagram. So I thought it would be helpful to spend a little time there and talk about that. So hashtags are really one of the most effective ways to grow your audience in Instagram. Like I said earlier, don't use them on Facebook because Facebook doesn't really respond to them that well. But it's really an effective way to increase the visibility of your post on Instagram. But you just kind of need to have a strategy and know a little bit more about which hashtags to use, as well as how to use them strategically. So some of the best practices that I've learned and witnessed and seen other clients, some of my clients do for use of hashgrams is, like, one question I get is, what is the optimal number? Like, how many hashtags should I have in a Instagram post? Well, within the caption itself, ideally, it's recommended to use 1 to 3 hashtags. If you go past that, you really are using up a lot of real estate for your actual character counts in your post copy. even though I know a lot of you have a lot of hashtags you want to use, you're probably seeing this happen more and more. And how people are getting around that is, rather than you wasting your real estate for your post copy with all your hashtags, go ahead and respond and create your first comment under that post. And there you can add as many hashtags as you want. I mean, up to 30 hashtags or something like that. So just rather than putting them all in your original post, add a comment and paste or type the rest of your hashtags there. And that's a great way to, get more hashtags in there that help deliver your content. Also, randomly just thinking about the what hashtags to use for your campaigns and for your nonprofit. I mean, one way is just to begin various brainstorming ideas about hashtags and Instagram. And if you just start typing those in a search in your Instagram search bar, it'll display all the other hashtags that are relevant to that. So you can see either if it's a good hashtag for you, or if you're competing with a lot of other organizations around the same topic. So that's one way you can kind of start your hashtag brainstorming. I work with a copywriter here in town and who works with quite a few nonprofits, and she is really good about keeping a list of hashtags per category. Like, so she will have a list of hashtags for educational events for her organization, or fundraising events for her organization, or other um, more product driven or service driven hashtags. And so she keeps a list of those. And based on the kind of post content she wants to create, she can go grab 3 or 4 of those and have them in there. And she's not always trying to think of a hashtag on the fly. Another thing with Instagram is just like what I talked about with Facebook earlier, is to be consistent. The worst thing you can do for your organization when you're trying to get followers is just to post randomly and haphazardly. People will forget about you. Top of mind is a real thing. So if you're lucky enough to get users to follow you on social, make sure you're communicating with them rarely and you don't disappear for weeks and months at a time. I know that now is a popular time for Good Giving Challenge, for all of you guys who are going to be online over the next few weeks promoting your messaging and what you're raising money for and goals you have for your organization. But it doesn't serve you well to just be on there during Good Giving and then kind of drop off for the rest of the year. So just try to think about that in your rhythm and your marketing strategies as you kind of go along. Just be more consistent. So what are some of the best times to post on Instagram? Again, I go to Sprout Social. They're the expert, not me. And they're saying, based on their findings, the highest engagement for Instagram appears to be Fridays around 11 a.m. to noon. So keep that in mind as you move forward with your Instagram planning. Now let's spend a little time talking about Twitter, the third in the big three. So Twitter, as I mentioned earlier, Twitter's fast pace makes it a great way to reach audiences that are checking in on social media throughout the day. But there also means there's a lot of people competing for that space and trying to get your attention or get your followers' attention. So let's just talk about some ways to maybe boost Twitter engagement as well. So first of all, this is a real simple one, but just make the most of the visual elements that you put in Twitter. I mean, Instagram is the sexy social media platform with the great photos that they have, but you can do a lot with Twitter as well. So just think about the type of imagery that you put in there. It's interesting, as you scroll through your Twitter feed on your mobile, specifically on your phone, look how, if you have a tweet that's just like a couple of sentences or just a little bit of copy, look how it compares to the one right below it that has a great photo or even a video. For example, like both of these, one has a shorter piece of content with a link out, and then the Liberty Mutual one, that's a video, and so it's animating and moving in the mobile feed and catching your eye. So just make sure that if you think about the bigger piece of content you can have, whether it's a photograph or a video, on your mobile phone, on a user's mobile phone, that takes up space. It dominates their screen, so they're going to pay attention to your post maybe more than somebody who's just put up a piece of copy. So just think about that. In particular, on Tweet, there's some statistics that say that if you're if you have an animated GIF, they get about 55% more engagement than just static photos. So think about creating some piece kind of animation. We wanted to do that this year with Good Giving and didn't have a chance to do an animated video, but it's coming next year, Lauren. I promise we're going to get it done. Another way to think about is interaction on Twitter in general. If you want to just drive up additional Twitter engagement, rather than just putting up a post and just waiting for the likes to come and the shares to come and the retweets to come, take some time when you have some downtime and go through your Twitter feed and your Twitter page and see who else you're following, and go to their pages and like their content as an organization or as an individual, like their content and share it and retweet it. We have found that if I really want to grow my organic audience quickly for a client, we will go through and we will like other people's accounts. And most often people are generous with their time and they want to do the same for you, and they'll follow your content and share it and like it and retweet it. And so it's just a great way of doing that. If you find yourself with some extra time, you can just go through your feed and start liking other people. So it's a great way to build organic content. And then again, timing is always important. And so it's one of the most crucial factors on how well your tweets are going to do is the time of day. So it's important to get your tweet out at a time. And back to Sprout, as they're telling us the best times for Twitter engagement is right around Wednesdays, around 3. So it's interesting if you think about the 3 platforms that we just reviewed, each of them has their own unique best times to post. So that'll give you maybe a little bit extra ammunition in your tool of things to do to create organic growth. So I think that is about all I've got right now. So I am going to stop this share and go back to the video, hopefully with any questions. Lauren, are you there?
I am.
Hopefully y'all saw that. I didn't talk for 40 minutes with no audience.
There is one question in the chat, and then I had a couple questions for you too.
Sure.
The question in the chat is, and reminder to everyone, if you have a question you'd like to see answered, go ahead and put that in the Q&A function. Somebody asked about the 2 to 3 posts a week. Is that per campaign or total?
What I was referencing is if you have a certain initiative that you're pushing, whether it's an event or a fundraising opportunity, or even like this client that I referenced earlier, we're doing a 10-year anniversary celebration. It's awareness building about their 10 years of service as a nonprofit. And in general, we have found that 2 to 3 posts per week related to an effort and initiative seems to work well. I think that could still apply well to just, if you have that much to talk about as a general nonprofit, feel free. But most often I'm talking about some kind of initiative or special event.
And for a time like the challenge, I mean, we post, I know you're not supposed to do this all the time. Like I've heard that if you post multiple times a day, Facebook starts to think you're a little spammy and will sort of penalize you. But if you have something like during the challenge, we have to do a post at least every day. I mean, if you do that, I know you said you're not an algorithm expert, yeah. But if we do that a week out of the year, I mean, is that okay? Like, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah. The Facebook algorithm is certainly much smarter than me. And so probably it's going to recognize that is a pattern over a designated period of time, and it's not abuse, and it's not spammy, that it's dedicated to some kind of special event. So probably they're going to, those algorithms, the things they look at are amazing. So they're going to recognize and pick up on the fact that you're not doing that every day for weeks and weeks on end.
Okay. And so, and one thing we try to do, and we did this last year, I think it worked. We tried to not just do like the same old post, like we try to incorporate more videos to explain like what that day's challenge was or whatever. So just try to, I don't know, trick the algorithm, I guess, or to prove like this isn't a bot.
Sure.
We're trying to vary the content.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I feel like you guys do a good job at encouraging the engagement with your nonprofits, and the supporters in those areas.
And I will say your point about engaging with the content, being other accounts' content is a good way to gain followers. And we really focused on that within the last year. One, it made, especially during the challenge, it made it a lot more fun. We got a lot more posts on ours, and it was fun to post on other, the nonprofits posts and things. So I don't know. It makes it more of a community. It feels.
It does. So. Yeah. And yeah, you and I even talked about in our planning stages for this about just how people are creating these social walls so they can see all the activity at once. And so it's just a really interesting way to kind of pulls everybody on a common ground, and we're all kind of in this together, and a rising tide lifts all boats kind of thing,
Exactly. So there's another question that came through. How do you use the social media followers to cross-reference with your donor database? Is that a tool that a business user account has?
I don't necessarily, I think if the person talks about look and see who's already following them, I don't necessarily, if there was a formal I don't have any business tools that would formally cross-reference a social media follower with a donor. So can they elaborate like what they're trying to achieve? Are they trying to make sure they see if a donor is a follower or vice versa?
I wonder if they're talking about building the lookalike audience or.
Okay. So
I don't know. She just mentioned, they mentioned Facebook again.
Well, so in that particular instance, Lauren, for you and what we've done of other nonprofits is it's oftentimes we'll start with, hey, we're going to do a lookalike campaign for your social media campaign. Can you send us your data list, your database? And that immediately puts some organizations on the defense, like, oh gosh, I don't want to give you my list. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to bug these people? Or that's not even what that's about. What that's about is, so say for instance, Lauren, if a client sent me a database of 6,000 donors and it has their email address, specifically, I mean, you could do a targeted email campaign to those people, which I'm assuming nonprofits do that all the time for end of year appeals and those kinds of things. That's not how we're using it. As I mentioned earlier, the Facebook algorithm is picking up on the users' profiles, their interests, those kinds of things, and they're creating a lookalike list of people who would behave like or might be prone to give to the same organization. And in fact, you can even Facebook can even say, I'm shooting for 1 to 3% of the list. I'm not trying to build a list of 6,000 or whatever. So it really is. It sounds like it's very invasive, but really it's tracking interest, browser performance, Facebook interest, things they've clicked on, things like that. It's not really contacting them.
And I would say even like when I give you that information, it doesn't even have like name or anything. I mean, it's just the emails.
It's just email addresses.
One thing that I wanted to add, you were talking about the comments on Instagram, especially not taking up, that valuable space in the caption. So we use, and I was also going to ask you if you had any tools that you recommend, but we use Buffer for our scheduling, especially during the challenge. And if you have a paid Buffer account, which is it's very affordable. I think it might be like $10 for a month. I mean, you could probably add it on for the challenge and then take it away if you wanted, but you can go ahead and schedule along with your post. You can plug in your image and your caption. And when you have that paid account, you can schedule that first comment as well.
Okay. Yeah. Hmm.
So
Yeah.
we didn't take advantage of that last year. We
Yeah,
just put but now I'm
yeah,
like, okay, well, that's a note. This year we're going to use that. So
yeah. So Buffer's a great one. It's a free tool, and you can get a lot done for the free tool. And then, of course, like you said, it's a minimal charge. As I referenced several times, Sprout Social is a great one that you can use to schedule all of your social media platforms. And then Hootsuite, of course, is another popular one, and it allows you to control and massage those hashtags and schedule everything ahead of time. I mean, for most of our campaigns right now for nonprofits, we're scheduling usually about 7 to 10 posts out. If we get too far out past that, there's changes and people come back, and it's just a lot of time wasted on editorial changes. But that's a good rhythm.
yeah, that is true. Somebody asked about um, any tips on like Hootsuite and specifically.
Well, I mean, we use it. I was using Buffer exclusively, and then I just need a little bit more of a robust tool. So we did go to Hootsuite, and so it's we. I have found that it's very user friendly. You can schedule multiple platforms. The great thing is like I talked about when I talked about earlier about creating unique captions for Facebook. Uh, it'll do some what's it called? It'll do some truncation. Like if you post some content in it, it's going to truncate it down to naturally for you to see it in Twitter and Instagram. So it's a good tool. I think it's if you've got um, if you've got maybe more than day or dedicated half hour a week, go in and schedule everything out and just kind of set it and forget it for a little bit because you know you've got everything scheduled. So I don't know much deeper than that. I mean, that's just how we use it as a scheduling tool, the same way you do Buffer. So, but no, it's a
Mhm.
good, it's a good program.
And I think we used to use that. For me, everybody's different, and I wanted just like the clean schedule of Buffer just to see what the posts were on each platform. But I know Hootsuite, for me, it was like a little.
The
I'm
dashboard
the
is
kind of person like on my Chrome browser, I have like 30 tabs
yes,
open. Like
yeah.
that's how I live my life. And Hootsuite does allow you to do that, I think, with like all the columns of hashtags and things. It got to be too much for
Yeah,
me.
the Hootsuite dashboard can be overwhelming for sure.
So, but I do remember you could, I mean, you could plug in those hashtags like the giving challenge or whatever, and you could monitor those things or even like local
Hmm.
hashtags or whatever, share the Lex. I think that's a local one or whatever. So
Yeah.
I think those are good for monitoring, but it didn't. Yeah, like I have too many, my brain has too many tabs open all the time. I don't need,
Yeah,
more
exactly.
with it. So,
Okay.
um,
Anything else?
I don't see. I'll allow like a last call for. Oh, okay. Another. Um, let's see. A question is: if we use primarily Facebook and Instagram, is using Facebook Business Suite sufficient?
Yes, I was just talking today with a coworker about Facebook's Business Suite. It can be really frustrating. It seems like over the last year and a half to 2 years, they've made it a lot more complicated than it needs to be. And so it seems like the ads manager itself used to be so much easier just to get into and navigate. And so I'm hoping that they totally redo their suite because I think it's overly complicated because sometimes you create ads, it takes you to the ads manager. Sometimes it takes you to this very complicated business suite. But I don't think you need anything more than a business suite for Instagram and Facebook. I think it should meet all your needs. I'm hoping they clean up the whole process because I feel like every time we set up an ad, we have to go through a different set of steps, and that's quite frustrating. Particularly with pixel tracking and link building, and oh gosh, it's just the other thing that also is happening right now, and just so you guys can be aware of this is, and you're probably encountering this if you're doing any paid advertising through Facebook. Facebook is flagging so much content right now. It's uber sensitive to bad players, and so, for instance, we have a nonprofit we're working with right now, and their main mission is all about housing and equity and um, And those are just some buzzwords that get people going crazy. And so you just have to be very, very strategic and sensitive. Make sure your language is, to the best of your ability, non-confrontational, non-inflammatory, because Facebook is flagging everything. Now, 8 times out of 10, when we ask them for a review, they do release it and let it go through. But even words like homes and housing and equity, those kinds of words are just triggering all kinds of reviews. And so, again, that's one of those things that I hope this new Meta corporation can fix. But it's just been super frustrating because, as you know, nonprofits are all about cause marketing and improving people's lives, and unfortunately, sometimes that can be misinterpreted in just their
Yes.
language too. So think about your post content and just try to use language that is more business and missional and less, I don't know, less confrontational or whatever. And again, that may not apply to some of you, but
That happened to us last year, David, when we were just doing some posts about videos highlighting the organizations that had been in it 10 years. I think one dealt with, it was a shelter for, people experiencing homelessness, and it kept getting flagged and taken down. And that was during the whole election,
yeah,
aftermath and all that. It was so frustrating.
And you're like, we're just trying to help people here, work with
help us help people.
Let us help people.
I know. So there was one more question. So about the hashtags for the challenge. So I think this year we're going to keep using hashtag Good Giving Challenge and hashtag BG Gives. One, because the website is BG Gives, and that just helps. And then just Good Giving Challenge, just to get that name recognition out there. In the past, I think they had used like years with those, but I think it's kind of fun to see, this. I like the consistency of using the same hashtag year after year. I don't think we need to update it. I don't know, David, what you think, but I don't think we need to update that year after year. And it's kind of fun to see the history as well. So
yeah, when you're an established organization like yourself, and particularly with this Good Giving campaign, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. Now, there might be new ones that come along and get introduced, but there's a couple of anchors that you should always go back to, and so I think you're right. Your instincts are right on that.
Okay, great. So those are the hashtags this year, same as last year.
Yeah.
Start using them. We'll put them in the comments of your posts on Instagram, especially. Don't put them in the caption. I learned that today. Yeah. So I was even texting my colleague Kaiten, and I was like, we need to stop doing that. Well, and then the point that you made about not including external links in the Facebook captions, and it makes sense. Facebook wants you to stay on Facebook, not leave the site. So
and you get a lot of, we work with a lot of clients who provide copy for their content. And I'm like, you keep repeating this website in every post. It's important, but don't forget that if it's a paid piece of content, you can put the URL down there anyway. But but in some cases, again, if you walk away with nothing else today, think about social is all about engagement and conversation, and like a paid strategy like digital display or anything else you do is about driving web traffic, driving to your website. Again, it's not that each category can't do both, but Facebook wants you to stay on there. They don't want you bouncing off and going to a website during in organic posts, particularly.
Wow. Yeah, it's common sense, but I had never even considered it. But thank you, David, for your time and the information that you shared with us today. I, as always, learned a lot. So
I hope you guys were able to glean just a little bit of takeaways, particularly on who's using what. I think that's really important, and who knows what's coming tomorrow, But I wish everyone the best of luck with Good Giving Challenge, and I hope they all have milestone years, and so you can continue to do the good work you're doing for our community. I appreciate it so much.
All right. Thank you, David. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in today.
Bye-bye.
Have a great rest of your day. Bye.